In this video, we're continuing our discussion about writing a program with design patterns and without if tests to help it become future-proof. So the first thing that we want to do in this video is continue where we left off in our last video. We're able to read from a directory of files. If we go over here and we'll take a look at these files. We're able to iterate over the files. Now what we need to do is we need to create the appropriate class that will handle that file. So annuity, employee, or life insurance. And for that we need to create an ultra simple abstract factory pattern. So I'm going to create a method within this class called, I'll tell you what, we'll make it private. We'll hold the return type for just a moment, and we'll call it create monthly item, and then string month, let's say string, we'll call it just string name, and then we'll say throws exception. So the idea is that this is our factory method. And what's going to happen is we're going to get a name in here, and the name is going to be annuity, employee, or life insurance. And we're going to need to create an annuity, employee, or life insurance class based on what this name is. So what are we going to return then? Because it could be an object of type annuity, employee, or life insurance, and those are all three different classes. But they do have one thing in common, and that is the interface that they all implement, and that interface is called monthly item. You could probably tell by the name of this method, create monthly item, that a good thing to return, a good return type might be monthly item. And in case I lost you on that last part, let me tell you why. First of all, fix that. Let me tell you why we can do this. Because each of these classes implement the interface monthly item. Remember polymorphism. Polymorphism says the variable type tells you what methods you're allowed to call. The object type tells you what will happen when you call those methods. In this case, we're saying the return type of this method is monthly item, which is quite fine. The object type we're actually returning is an annuity, a life insurance, or an employee object. Each of those implement monthly item, so this construction is just fine. Now, we do want to program this without if tests, but just to kind of think about how we're going to do it, I'll start this factory by using if tests, and we'll go back in later and we will remove those if tests. So I'll say monthly item, mi equals null. So no object stored here, it's just a vacant lot with no building on it. Return mi. That will take care of our red line. Now I'm going to say if name.equals. Remember in Java we want to use .equals, not the double equal sign when we're comparing strings. So if name.equals annuity, okay, then we'll say mi equals new annuity. Okay. Else if name.equals, and then we'll say employee, then open curly and close curly, mi equals new employee. Else if name.equals, and then we'll say life insurance. Then we'll say, we'll say mi equals new life insurance. So you see here that we are fulfilling our obligation because we're taking this name indicator, we're creating and returning an object of the appropriate type. But we also know that if tests are bad, and why is that? Well, if you look closely, you might see where we're eventually going, which is there's yet another file here called mutual fund, which we're not processing. And there could be other files in the future. There could be 401k, there could be IRA, there could be HSA, there could be all kinds of additional file types. We don't want to have to go into this class and change this class just because we have a new file type to process. So we'll come back to that in a minute. But first of all, how are we going to invoke this method and pass that indicator in? Well, that's an interesting little trick. Because remember that we're able to iterate over our collection of files. If you take a look here, we have a collection of files. And we're able to get the file name. Now take a look at those file names. What do you see there? Annuity, employee, and life insurance. And as I said, mutual fund we'll get to later. Notice that each of them begins with a 0 and then a number. We could also use an underscore or some other kind of delimiter. But provided we can find that 0, we can also find what precedes that 0. So let's do a little bit of math here using some string magic that we learned a long time ago. So I'm going to say file name dot substring. And for the substring, we're going to pass in two different parameters. We're going to say 0, which is our starting location, and then I'm going to say file dot index of, and then, whoops, make that lowercase I. And then we'll pass in the number 0. Now, why is that? That's because what we're doing is we're saying begin at the 0 position of this string, where the string represents just the file name that we see here. Start there and continue until you see the first number 0. Take all of that entire unit, in other words, the first character up to but not including the first 0 character, take that entire unit and pass that back as a string. So, okay, looks like I have just a little bit more math to do here. We'll say, first of all, what's the red line telling me? Cannot find symbol method index of. So, oh, sorry, should be file name. That's what I'm missing. File name index of 0. Okay, and terminate with a semicolon. And then we'll say string factory param equals file name dot substring. So in other words, we're just extracting out the word annuity from this file, the word employee from this file, the word mutual fund from this file. We're just extracting that out. As a matter of fact, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and delete that mutual fund for the moment. It's going to be a distraction until we need it. So we'll just go ahead and keep it simple like that. Now that we have the parameters, so we'll say get the file type by performing some string math on the file name. Now that we have that, we can create a monthly item object using the abstract factory pattern. So now we can invoke create monthly item. And I see actually I need to make that static as well now that I'm looking at it. So create monthly item. And let's pass in this factory param. Terminate with a semicolon. Remember how we can, whoops, okay, what doesn't it like about factory? Okay, it doesn't like the exceptions, so we may need to do some exception handling here. Although, I'll tell you what, I think right now we can probably get by without throwing the exceptions, so for simplicity, we'll keep it like so. We'll clean it up more in a little bit. Okay, create monthly item. So we're invoking a method create monthly item. Create monthly item will return an object of type monthly item. Up here where I'm invoking the method on line 35, I can hold Shift-Alt-V and assign that to a variable. We'll call this one, we'll pick that expression, and we'll call it simply monthly item. Okay, and there we go. And then that leaves us with issue the execute command on the monthly item object by using the command pattern. Okay, we'll come to that in just a moment, but first, let's just test out and make sure that this is working as we want. In other words, if I'm on an annuity file, let's confirm that this object under the covers is actually an annuity object. If I'm on an employee file, let's make sure it's an employee object. And of course, life insurance, we'll make sure it's a life insurance object. So I right-click and I choose debug, and let's watch what happens here. It is going to read our directory of files. It's going to give us a list of those files. Now it's going to pull off the first file name. Let's go down and take a look at what that file name is. It's annuity 01234. Okay, now we do that confusing substring where we're saying start at character number 0 of this file name, continue until you see the first 0 character, and then take out that unit, which in this case should just be annuity. Let's make sure I did my math right because that one can be a little bit tricky. If I mouse over factory param, what value do we see? Sure enough, we see the value annuity. And if we look in the debugger, we can see that value annuity as well. Now, let's march on in to our abstract factory method, and let's watch what happens here. Note that the name coming in is annuity. We were able to take that off of the file name. So let's watch as we go through the if test. Is the name annuity? Yes. Then create and return a new annuity object. Okay, and then we loop again. I'll loop a few more times until we get to a different file type. Okay, what's this one here? So I mouse over factory param. This one is employee. Take a look at that. The file name is employee01237, and the factory param is employee. So I F7 step into our factory method. Is the name annuity? No, it's not annuity. Is the name employee? Ah, yes, it is employee. So we create and return a new employee object, and then we can process that. And we continue in F8, F8. What's our next one? We have another employee, F8, F8. This time we have a life insurance. So let me step in, and let's confirm that the token we're passing in is life insurance, and that is, it's not annuity or employee. So we choose F8, F8, and sure enough, it creates a new life insurance, and it's returning an object of type life insurance. So what we've seen here is that it is creating and returning the correct object type based on the file name. So annuity for the first 3 files, employee for the next 2, and life insurance for the final file. So it's creating and returning the correct type of object, but each time it is storing it in this variable called monthly item of type monthly item, and that's just fine. Now this will work for us, but we know there is an easier way to do this. We know that we don't have to do all of this if test magic here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do kind of a block comment here, and I'm going to go ahead and change this around just a little bit. I'll tell you what, we'll keep a couple of items here. We'll keep the declaration and the return right here. I'll just add some new things in the middle. So the question is, it looks, as a matter of fact, just a moment. It looks a bit goofy to say if the name equals annuity, then return annuity. If the name equals employee, then return employee. If the name is life insurance, then return life insurance. Because you see, we have some inherent duplication here. You see the name, and then the constructor matches that name exactly. It's almost like you want to eliminate this if test and just say create a new of whatever this name is. If it's annuity, blah. If it's employee, like so. If it's life insurance, like so. It's almost like you want to just eliminate this whole if test and say, can't you take this name and figure out what class that name maps to? And indeed we can do that, and indeed it is fairly simple. It's a bit of confusing syntax, but it does work fairly well. So what we need to do is we need to say class.forName. Now forName means send me in the entire fully qualified name of the class you want to make an object out of. Fully qualified, what do we mean by that? By fully qualified, we name the package name dot the class name. So I'm going to say, I'm going to say, first of all, need to do some parameters here. I need to say monthly processing dot, and then we'll say plus name. And that will essentially give us the fully qualified class name that we want to create. So monthly processing is the package, as you see here, and then the class name, annuity, employee, and life insurance that you see follow that. So that will give us a reference to the class, and then we can invoke new instance to get an object of that type. Okay, now it's a little bit upset with us here. So class not found exception. So here's where we might want to say throws exception, and then we have to handle the exception on the other side. We have to handle the exception where this method is being called. But that's okay. Do you see that this, with a little more math, I need to say mi equals and then monthly item. Need to do a little casting here, but this one line right here replaces all of these lines down here, and we've now taken the if test away. So I'll tell you what we'll do. Now this factory method is complete and it's very flexible. We've removed the if test, but the problem is here, now we need to handle an exception. So I'm going to say surround statement with try catch, and we'll leave it like that for the time being. I'm going to do just a little dummy line here in I equals 1 plus 1, so we can snap the debugger and we can confirm that this method still works as we want it to work. So let's watch very closely as I right click and I choose debug, and we see that we're on this file. So we get a reference to the directory that holds our data files. Okay, we list out those data files. Okay, now we're going to iterate over the data file, get the name. The first one is annuity, so let's confirm our factory param is the word annuity. If you look up there right above my cursor, you'll see annuity. Also see it down below where the variables are. Now let's go to our new factory method. I choose F7 to step into, and take a look here. Class.forName monthly processing.name. And what's name here? Name is annuity. So monthly processing.annuity. There's our package monthly processing. Here's our class annuity. Let's make sure that this gives us back the correct object. F8, and take a look at what's stored in this MI variable, an object of type annuity. We choose F8, and we continue, and let's confirm up here monthly item. If I take a look at monthly item and I look down here in the variables tab, we see that the type indeed is annuity. I remember the first three files are annuity files, so we'll go ahead and fast forward through the second and third, and now let's slow down and look at the fourth. The fourth is what? The fourth is an employee. So I choose F7, step into our factory method, and monthly processing dot, what's name in this case? Name is employee. That's going to create an object of type employee, and there's our object of type employee. We return that, and we continue to iterate. The next one is also an employee. The final one should be life insurance. So let's mouse over here, life insurance, and quickly F8N. Once again, monthly processing.life insurance. That's the class it's going to create. And we see that when we come back, what's inside of this variable called monthly item? Well, the variable type is monthly item, but the object type under the covers is life insurance. If you see above my mouse cursor here. Also, if we look down in the variables tab, you'll see that the variable monthly item contains an object of type life insurance. So that's a couple ways we can implement an ultra simple abstract factory method. In the next video, we're going to start with the knowledge that we have the correct type of object in this monthly item variable, and then we're going to issue the command pattern to actually make that object do some work. I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you.